Welcome to Roundtable 11, February 23rd, 2017. Faith, Hope, and Charity, Corporate Aspects, Business Prospects. The original 21st Century Vision Business Roundtable. Before we begin, I'll just go through some books of interest and magazines of interest. This is Harper's Bazaar, and there's a lot of art and fashion right now. Which is always a symbol of strength and individuality. Forbes 30 under 30, the generation that's making social enterprise so popular. The most influential photos of all time, in Time magazine, and the Smithsonian. Incarceration Nation. We have a new awareness that we've been noticing in America. Wired, and it's what lies ahead. But I think that what can be added to their list of 49 trends that will shape the very near future is social responsibility. Okay, key concepts in public relations. Franklin, Hogan, Quentin, Langley, Mosdell, and Pill. The global market, developing a strategy to manage across borders. Quelch, Despande. That's a Harvard Business School book. Tomorrow's Table. Organic Farming, Genetics, and the Future of Food. Ronald and Adamanchek. The Comic Book Story of Beer. The world's favorite beverage from 7000 BC to today's craft brewing revolution. And how it's always good to take a moment to reflect on what's important. Hennessy, Smith, McConnell. Art by McConnell. Green Design, From Theory to Practice. A lot of contributors. It's a Black Dog Publishing book. Of course, DK is always great, and we have to remember the rainforests. We still have to think of the rainforests. And Melting Away, a 10-year journey through our endangered polar regions. Beautiful photography. Okay. So this is a New York City, New York Gold Tours meetup, broadcasting independently 45 minutes a month from the about business relevancies from a meeting room at the Science, Industry, and Business branch of the New York Public Library, if you couldn't tell that by the books, on Madison Avenue, New York City. Thanks for dropping in. I'm host Loretta Jones, CEO of New York Gold Tours. Once we begin promoting these 21st Century Vision social media and local events, they'll accommodate 9 business leaders who RSVP on meetup.com to meet local to global here with me onto Periscope and the web. Come to one or come to all. I'll start each of 3 segments with talking points that I've written out into few-minute segments of fresh new ideas, inviting experts or anyone concerning business to join in, then a 10-minute discussion following each segment. Later, use the video of the roundtable to structure talks in your own organizations. Free on Periscope, Skype, YouTube, Google+. Join the conversations on Facebook and Pinterest. Follow New York Gold Tours on Twitter. Definitions. Social consciousness. Corporate culture having a social cause or angle to a company's business that contributes a percentage of proceeds to the cause's betterment. Socially responsible, creating a product primarily for a social cause where the whole product is for and about the cause. Social enterprise, whole business structures created solely for solving a social cause that reinvest profits back into the cause. Charity, voluntary contribution to relief of a social problem and/or offering social geared channels. Okay, first talking points. Society. It's in society, the compulsion to look around and see distress, strife, suffering. We all share in it. It's always just a matter of time until we want to do something towards relief of life. Politicians do it, businesses do it, celebrities do it, even the birds and bees might do it. Let's do it. Let's offer help. George Washington is an example of being compelled to serve. He refused to draw a salary for being president. I walk on untrodden ground, he said as he began his new responsibilities. There is scarcely any part of my conduct that may not hereafter be drawn into precedent. Sure to it, my elementary school taught us that President of the United States was among the lesser paying job options, so apparently it's been kept somewhat close to vest. The idea of serving even of diffidence and reluctance. From one who was recently and reluctantly elected treasurer of a client advisory board, I offer those of Washington's words to mean humility. Washington's true character, evidently, since he said same type words of leading in war, diffidence and reluctance. War he eventually won. When they offered him up as king, he admonished them, doing so with abhorrence. So integrity, of course, too. True societal righteousness, today #global goals, is tied up with freedom, which really means not just fought for, but sacrificed for. Fought in terms of standing up for truths, sacrificing in ways of sharing comforts, yielding preconceived thought to new states of aware, humbling oneself instead of aggrandizing. Even so, in those early days as president, he had slaves. Exploitation also in society. That's why boards, agencies, meetups even, are good for checks and balances of the behavioral variety and can act as eyes of an organization. When the need to rein in exploits, whether profit, like Warren Buffett, who wants to give his profits away so much more than to his children, or power as Washington did when deciding how to fight the war and write off assessing shortcomings, it's best to have feedback. Society has built-in reflections. Corporations must create their own while checking in with societies. What are some of the ways corporations can see their behavior for the best, and what are some ways we can see our company's behavior at their worst, when seeing as society will see us? How can that help bring aspects of our corporations forward into 21st century needs and abilities? Before we discuss that, a quote by George Washington found on brainyquote.com. Let your heart feel for the afflictions and distress of everyone, and let your hand give in proportion to your purse, by George Washington. So now 10 minutes to discuss corporate aspects, business prospects, first talking points, society, and the best measures for conscience check-ins. Okay, so now anyone joining the conversation on Periscope can feel free to do so. And our video that's recording for future talks and can be used, future talks can pause right now and have a 10-minute discussion in your own organization. Okay. Right, well, I don't see anyone joining in our roundtable on live on Periscope. So we will go back in now. Second talking points. Tag, you're it. In 2004, I developed on eBay MHC Mad Hatter hats for a cause. Online sales of one-of-a-kind newsboy caps that let purchasers contribute to a cause of affording tuition to private schools for disadvantaged kids in inner city areas as I envisioned it. Then, by wearing the hat, they were supporting the cause by displaying their choice of an X or O hand-painted onto a tic-tac-toe board that supported the cause. That each new hat sale entered progress onto. So for each hat that I sold, the buyer was able to pick a square. They could pick, according to when they bought it, they would be X or O, and they can pick a square. So upon purchase, they were given those details, and then they picked their square, and it was then hand painted onto the tiny tic-tac-toe board in the corner of the hat, and then they were signed. So that was the MHC hats for a cause, Mad Hatter hats for a cause. A visual element to track actual gain in a fun, original way. My first foray into social consciousness as a company that actually targeted something for which I was at a loss was inspired by seeing my own needs. Taxes are one greatly transparent way we contribute automatically, without thought, money going into a pool that will contribute to one cause or another. The function comes directly from the needs of society. If you can't think of anything you yourself or company are at a loss for, put yourself in the shoes for a moment of most company leaders, presumably white. And recall from our very first roundtable, Business Beyond Race, where we pointed out the fact that all human beings having come from Africa, some of us having lost our color, are here on this globe with indisputable realities. Through DNA mutations, our skin color went to lighter as we migrated to colder climates. So assume from standpoints of lost heritage of appearance, what impacts that may have to emotions, to psyche, to denial, especially when faced with equations of diversity that put us on these evidenced quests for security in our societies while neglecting to optimize possibilities. Paying attention to our thoughts and our company mission statements is essential in today's climates of transparency and increasing corporate responsibility. Then, finding fresh new ways to engage our customers and the outside world with our goals, we can make great local and global progress away from leaving a world of inequities. Before we discuss that, a quote about insecurity found on brainyquote.com. The psychic task which a person can and must set for himself is not to feel secure, but to be able to tolerate insecurity. By Eric Fromm. So now 10 minutes to discuss corporate aspects, business prospects. Second talking points. How can we keep giving light, truthful, and fun? Okay, so the video can pause now. And we can take online. Okay, so we can resume now. Hello, and we can go on to our third talking points, social responsibility. Want to take social consciousness to the next level? Let your whole business be all about it. Idea storming? Think about a cause related to solving your inequities while doing the same for societies. Think of what you yourself or your corporation have lost or is in want of. When I first delved into the hats for a cause attempt online, it was my own need for my child I was trying to solve. He was just great, doing well enough, but there was a private school that would be perfect for him to really excel into his own capabilities that I just couldn't afford. I grew up in public schools, and knowing not much of private schools I was almost bashful about asking for scholarship. I wasn't as well versed in that area of funding and took into account the needs of the school just as much as our own. But those days selling online got me thinking in a new way that bore sensitivities to deficits of other kinds as well. Driving downtown to Hartford from my home in Avon, the town in Connecticut I lived in the 4 years I lived outside of New York, I was floored by the desolate look of the inner city housing there, and immediately thought of what a beautification effort might look like, and focused on murals. The destitution was really bad. It was different than anything I had ever seen in New York, and I was born and raised in New York. It seemed to have such a despair in it, in the inner city poor area in Hartford, Connecticut. The bricks even just seemed so dark and dreary. I don't know how to describe it, but it was very sad to me. I started a new hat initiative to paint on the hats and contribute to a cause of painting murals in areas of despite. The initiative had to be let go by their first months due to personal reasons, both initiatives, the hats and the hats for the murals and the hats for the tic-tac-toe ones. And that never developed. But now in 2017, how timely they'd be, right? If you look at your own corporation with a sympathetic at first lens, you might come up with the perfect cause to work on while building your own storehouses. If there's roughly 250 million businesses in the world, imagine the impact if the vast majority work towards social justice. Social justice. Isn't that perfect to end this February Black History Month with such a reflection to take forward into the rest of the year on a starting point example of figuring out a relevant cause? Before we discuss that, a quote of social justice found on Goodreads.com. And by the way, a relevant cause is worth, it's like they say about a pound of cure. A relevant cause is worth so much more than just a cause. Haven't we all seen enough of I'd have to say same old, same old. Okay, so before we discuss that, a quote of social justice found on Goodreads.com. The ends you serve that are selfish will take you no further than yourself, but the ends you serve that are for all, in common, will take you into eternity. By Marcus Garvey. So 10 minutes to discuss corporate aspects, business prospects. Third talking points. What are some ways social justice is important to both sufferer and giver? Okay, so we can pause the video, and thank you very much for joining. And that is all of the Periscope.